A boy who became the victim of violence and pain in his childhood, later grown to become the one who loved to deliver violence and pain. Grown in a family that gifted trauma and violence to a child, gave birth to a cruel dictator. Let's explore the footprints of horrors that Saddam Hussein has left in the Eastern history. Saddam Hussein was born in a small village, Tikrit, in northern Iraq, on April 28, 1937. He came to the world as an unwanted child. When Saddam was in her mother's womb, his father Hussein Abd al-Majid and his brother both died of cancer. His mother, Subha Tulfa al-Musalid, wanted to abort him before he was even born. She tried to take her own life as well, but it was a failed attempt. Saddam's mother blamed the unborn child and believed that he took their lives before even he was born and she'd been carrying a Satan in her belly. His mother soon got married to Ibrahim al-Hassan, who gave him several half-brothers. His stepfather used to beat him often. He became the target of violence as he grew up. Soon, when the limit of toleration was crossed, he ran away at the age of 10 to Baghdad where his uncle, Kahir al-Atalfa, lived. He started living with his uncle and took his steps towards education and completed his secondary school in Baghdad. Later he studied law at Iraqi law school for almost 3 years, after which he dropped out to join revolutionary Pan-Arab Ba'ath Party in 1957. He had a dedication to prove himself, in result of which he participated in a mission to assassinate Abd al-Karim Qasim, the Prime Minister of Iraq at that time. It was in 1959, when the assassination team shot several bullets at Qasim, during which Saddam himself got injured. While the assassins thought that Qasim was killed, he turned out to be alive. The mission was a failure which deeply affected Saddam. After this, he had to flee to Syria and from there he moved to Egypt. From 1962 to 1963, he joined Cairo Law School and then later when Ba'ath Party came to power, in 1963, he continued his studies in Baghdad Law College. But soon the Ba'athists were hunted down and the powerful members were taken away to jail and Saddam was also thrown in prison where he spent few years. But he wasn't the one who would accept his destiny and stay where life had taken him. He took actions and escaped from the prison. After his escape, Saddam rose through the ranks of the Ba'ath Party and became the vice president of Iraq in 1968 following a coup. He became the de facto ruler of Iraq within a year. After spending a few years as one of leaders of Ba'ath Party in alliance with President Ahmed Hassan al-Bakr, he made possible the Iraq oil industry's nationalization, in 1972. He also introduced several policies which led to the literacy of thousands of people in Iraq. Through Saddam's suggestion, the government also provided free hospitalizations and subsidies to the farmers. The revenue from Iraq oil industry was helping the country in many ways. Soon, every city in Iraq had electricity. Later, the banks were nationalized and loans were provided to people. In 1972, a 15-year treaty of friendship and cooperation with Soviet Union was signed by Saddam. However, this offended USA. During the early years, Saddam gave his attention to the welfare of Iraq. He modernized the rural areas and distributed lands to the farmers. The state banks were under the rule of Saddam and he was doing good deeds for his countries. Soon in 1976, Saddam became a general in the Iraqi armed forces and later the strongman of the government. He influenced the foreign policies and constituted the diplomatic relations of the nation. Saddam got full support of Ba'ath Party. Later in 1979, al-Bakr, the president of Iraq, made treaties with Syria leading to the unification of two countries. The president of Syria, Hafiz al-Assad, became the deputy leader in a union. However, this change was not accepted by Saddam because the power was going in a different direction. So, he took actions and forced al-Bakr to resign from his position of president and took control of presidency in 1979. Saddam's rule was characterized by a repressive regime. He established a personality cult and was known for purges, political oppression, and severe human rights abuses. His presidency was marked by a combination of authoritarian rule, economic reform, and a series of wars and conflicts. Saddam initiated economic reforms that initially led to improvements in education, healthcare, and infrastructure. Iraq's oil revenues played a crucial role in funding these developments. After becoming president in 1979, he also took position of the Prime Minister and Chairman of the Revolutionary Command Council. He established a secret police to eliminate any oppositions during his rule. He aimed to replace Egypt as a top Arab world and dominate Persian Gulf. However, one of the most significant events during his rule was the Iran-Iraq War. This war was one of the longest and deadliest conflicts of the 20th century, occurred from September 1980 to August 1988 and had a profound impact on both countries. This war between Iraq and Iran resulted in immense human suffering, economic devastation, and lasting geopolitical consequences. In 1980, Saddam invaded Iran's oil field. Both Iraq and Iran employed chemical weapons, causing significant suffering and death. The use of chemical agents, such as mustard gas and nerve agents, led to devastating consequences for those exposed. This war was characterized by its brutality, trench warfare, and the use of chemical weapons. The Iran-Iraq War was a brutal and protracted conflict with deep and lasting repercussions for the two countries involved and the broader Middle East. It exposed the dangers of sectarian divisions and territorial disputes, and it served as a reminder of the destructive potential of regional conflicts. The war's legacy continues to influence the geopolitics of the Middle East, emphasizing the importance of diplomatic efforts in preventing such conflicts in the future. The cost of war loaded on Saddam resulted in downfall of his economic development of Iraq, but this did not make him stop. This Iran-Iraq war continued for next 8 years till 1988, which ended by acceptation of both countries to ceasefire. After the end of war, Iraq was on a huge debt, yet it did not stop Saddam from increasing the size of his armed forces. It only took 2 years for Saddam to prepare and invade Kuwait. In August 1990, he used the Iraq oil revenue to attack Kuwait. This conflict highlighted the limitations of Saddam's military and exposed his brutal treatment of his own people. The whole world could see what Iraqi people were going through, and worldwide hatred was given to Saddam. People appealed to Saddam to retreat from Kuwait, but every disagreement was ignored by him. This attack on Kuwait was known as the Persian Gulf War, which officially started in 1991. This war allowed Western forces led by America to get involved in the conflict, which led to a swift defeat of Iraqi forces and their expulsion from Kuwait. The Iraqi army was driven out of Kuwait after 6 weeks of beginning of the war. The defeat of Iraq gave birth to the revolts by Shias and Kurds, but Saddam escaped the situation by suppressing them. Thousands of the revolutionary fled to refugee camp, and rest of them were either tortured or killed. Iraq was restricted to produce chemical and nuclear bombs as per the ceasefire agreement with UN. The economy of Iraq was also suffering because of the several sanctions. However, Saddam did not fully cooperate with UN, which resulted in Operation Desert Fox in 1998, where a 4-day airstrike was held by the United States and Great Britain. As Saddam was getting hatred from the world, USA and UK took advantage of the situation and supported every enemy of Iraq so that Saddam could be taken away from his position. As a result, Saddam denied any UN weapons inspectors to enter the country. In Arab, Saddam was famously known for standing against America. He was considered fearless and bold for this quality of him. It was in 2001, September 11th attacks in US was given a rise. In September 11th attack, the airlines were hijacked and suicide attacks were committed by 19 militants that were related to Islamic extremist group in US. This is counted as one of the most horrific terrorist attacks in US. The United States, under President George W. Bush, and its allies argued that Iraq possessed weapons of mass destruction, which were considered a significant threat to international security. This belief was a key argument presented to the United Nations and the public to garner support for the invasion. However, after the invasion and subsequent investigations, it became clear that the intelligence regarding Iraq's weapons of mass destruction capabilities was flawed and, in some cases, inaccurate. No stockpiles of chemical, biological, or nuclear weapons were ever discovered. However, in 2003, Saddam received a threat from U.S. President to leave his position and leave the country. Otherwise, Iraq will be faced by a war. He was given 48 hours to disappear, but Saddam refused to do that and Iraq was under attack on March 20, 2003. It was informed to U.S. that Saddam will be meeting subordinates at a bunker complex. So, the first attack was made there. After seeing the attack, Saddam put Iraqis' lives on line to save himself. The attacks of US and UK did not stop. Eventually, Saddam had to flee from Iraq. His 2 sons were captured and killed by US troops in Mosul. But Saddam was not caught until December 13. An operation codenamed Red Dawn was launched to track him down. Acting on intelligence reports, U.S. military forces, including elements of the 4th Infantry Division and Special Operations units, raided a rural farmhouse near Tikrit where Saddam Hussein was believed to be hiding. After an extensive search, he was found in a filthy small underground hiding place at the periphery of Tikrit. When he was finally found, he surrendered himself to U.S. troops even when he was armed. Saddam was put on trial on October 2005 in front of Iraqi High Tribunal. He was charged to kill around 148 townspeople in 1982. He was found guilty to torture people and killing them brutally. During several trials, he had many outburst and anger issues. For all the killings he had done, he was sentenced to death. He was finally executed in December 2006. The Iran-Iraq War, the Gulf War, and the subsequent conflict in Iraq resulted in enormous human and economic costs. Saddam's life and rule were marked by a combination of ambition, brutality, and complexity. His legacy is a mix of political stability, brutality, economic development. After his death, people took a breath of relief. Initially, he was dedicated to make Iraq a better place, or was it just a sham to gain power? He has been compared to Hitler many times, but he's also believed to be just a fraction of him. What are your thoughts about Saddam? Do let us know your critics so we can improve our upcoming videos. Subscribe to our channel for more such content. Thanks for watching.